Hello everyone, we are at Cheltenham Cemetery and Crematorium. It was opened in 1864 and at the present time I think it stands in about 65 acres now. This is a revisit obviously because I have made a Cheltenham Cemetery video before, and if you go back it was absolutely what was the word? Rubbish? Diabolical? Whichever word you want to use. Anyway, what I want to say is first, before I get on with what I'm going to say today, I am an amateur. I will make mistakes. Research is not perfect. Everything I do is from an amateur point of view. So if you can be so kind as not to make any rude comments about my work, it would be appreciated. But what we're seeing here now is the old part of Cheltenham Cemetery, and this gentleman here I found out was a general, and he had an interesting life. He was actually a very prolific soldier, so I was quite surprised when we looked him up actually. I can't think what his name was offhand actually. I was going to write it down but obviously I didn't. This is actually, oh yes I did actually, his name is Sir Frederick Cartington and he's in plot X 5028. Now why I'm doing a voiceover is because as usual everything went completely wrong when I got there and there was a little banging and other things going on, so you didn't want to hear what was going on. Now where I am taking you now, this is the old part of the cemetery, the original part when it opened from the 1800s, so most of these are very old graves as you can see as we're going past. Now what I'm going to take you to see is a gentleman, which I'll tell you his name in a minute because I don't want to spoil who he is for a minute. It's quite an interesting story if you're into ripperology. He's what they call an unofficial suspect, because as you know, anybody who's into ripperology all have their own theory who Jack the Ripper is. Now I'm not going to mention names because it's not fair to the people, because I know there's a lot of people out there that's going to poo-poo this, as they say, poof, whatever you want to call it. He is a soldier. Well, he was a soldier. His name is Colonel Claude Reginald Condor. We'll get to his grave in a minute, we will. He was, as I said, he's an amateur. He's an amateur theory, if you know, for some amateurs. There is a book on it, so you can go and buy it on, I think it's on Amazon, you can buy it, because that's where I've seen it. I actually have a copy of it, so it's quite interesting. Now, Claude, I got distracted here by, well, as you can see, mushrooms. We'll be there in a minute. Now, Claude was an archaeologist, he was a map maker and a explorer. I don't think that makes him Jack the Ripper though. That's what he spent most of his life doing actually. I just don't know why they've come up with the theory that he's Jack the Ripper. Around the time of the Ripper murders, so say on July the 1st, 1887, he went to Plymouth to work on an audio survey and was transferred from April to Southampton in charge of the engraving department. So he remained there for 7 years. So why he would be in London at the time of the murders, I wouldn't have a clue. But they have him down as a suspect. And as I said, I'm not going to be one of these people that say, oh well, you know, that's, you know, stupid, he's not Jack the Ripper and all this. But so you come up with your own conclusions, so I know what a lot of people think. And he's not a recognised suspect as Jack the Ripper, so it's just a theory that somebody's come up with. So since doing the book, well, making the book, publishing the book, whatever you would like to call it, Buried Past Tales from a Cheltenham Cemetery, I have continued my research into the people buried in this cemetery. I've come across quite a few fascinating stories. Now, one of them is Paul Brereton. I'll spell it to you because obviously I have explained this on many occasions. I am dyslexic, so I can't actually always get the spellings correct when I'm saying them. It's Paul, and it's Bretherston. Now, he is buried in plot E in 7496 is his grave number. Now, remember, people think, well, that doesn't ring a bell for any reason. Now, I wouldn't expect it to, unless you are a big history buff. Sorry, I will get this right. Now, he was born in California on the 10th of January 1912, and he died here in England on the 19th of August 1980. Now, that doesn't say much about him, but this does. He is a survivor of the sinking of RMH Lusitania, which was hit on the 7th of May 1915 off the coast of Ireland. Now, along with his mother, who's also survived, was his sister, his little sister. Now, sadly, his sister was drowned. Now, I'll tell you what happened. Now, also a little bit of information on this is his mother was pregnant at the time. She was 5 months pregnant, and what happened is, when the explosion hit the ship, his mother had his baby sister in his arms. Now, she tried to get one of the men to go down to get her son, who was sleeping below deck. Now, the men refused to do so, so being the mother she was, she thrust her daughter into the arms of one of the gentlemen and ran down to get her son herself. Now, by the time she got her son and came back, the man who she'd left with her daughter had passed her on to somewhere else. Where? I do not know. The mother doesn't know. It was never established what had happened to her daughter. All that knew was where she'd left her wasn't where she was when she came back. Now, sadly, what happened next was even sad as well. Now, she tried to get into a lifeboat, and they wouldn't let her in the lifeboat with her son. So this continued. She went to another lifeboat, and she was also turned away from this lifeboat. But luckily for her, she'd made an acquaintance on the ship, and this lady insisted that the men let her in with her son. Now, still not knowing what happened to her daughter, this must have been horrific. And so she got into the boat. It was lifeboat 13 actually, so I know 13 is meant to be unlucky, but for her it was lucky. So obviously they got rescued, they were taken to land. She still had no idea what had happened to her daughter. It wasn't until some time later that she found out that her daughter had actually drowned and was buried in Ireland. So that was the sad case of Paul, who's buried in Cheltenham Cemetery. What we're looking at now is I'm going around my grandfather's plot. He's buried in B1, and there are a lot of soldiers buried in B1, which, as I'm showing you now, is absolutely quite full. At the front, at the back, it's covered with World War soldiers from all different periods. You've got the 1914, you've got from the period 1914 right up to 1920. I think it was 1920 was the last time anybody who had died as a consequence of World War One could have an official headstone, or in the War Commission headstone, that is. Right, so back to my story I was telling you about Paul. So yes, Paul's father then, because he was actually, they were both British by birth, but they were classed as US citizens. Now, anyone who was a US citizen the government of the US sued the German government for the death and obviously the trauma of the people, of the American citizens. Now, they called it the Mixed Claims Commission. Now, so for the death of their daughter, they received $7,500. For the loss of property, they got $1,500. So that's Paul's story. This is beautiful colours up there this time of year. All the trees are in blossom. You know, no, I wouldn't say. I say blossom, not blossom. The trees are falling off. You know, the leaves. But I meant the autumn colours are up there. Oranges and the yellows you can see in the background here, and the trees had all little berries on. I know I get easily distracted, it's terrible, and I will go along and I'll show you all the graves along here of the soldiers as well. As I said, another story that I recently came across was that of Leslie George Johnson. Now, he was a racing driver who took part in rallies, hill climbs and Grand Prix. And now he's buried in Cheltenham Cemetery as well. I'm not going to give too much details away, just in case at a later date that I do a follow-up or add to the book. So some of the stories I will tell you in full, some of them I won't. So that is that one. Another gentleman buried here in Cheltenham Cemetery is John Jack Archer. He was an athlete. And in the London 1948 Games, he and his teammates won silver in the 100-metre relay. Also, in the Commonwealth Games of 1950 in Auckland, New Zealand, they took silver again in the 100-metre relay, which was quite interesting. I thought there's another gentleman to tell you about. I will tell you about some more in a minute, but I'm going to come up to an interesting one in a minute that I want to tell you about. So I'm just going to look around for a bit and then I'll come back and tell you another story. So the next two stories I can tell you are of two brothers. One is Septimus Tennyson, he was a poet, and his brother Reverend Charles Tennyson Turner. They're both Tennysons and they are both brothers of Lord Alfred Tennyson, the Lord, I'm going to say Lord again then, the poet literature. So that was interesting. I think there was a reason. I think their family, I think it was their mother or their sister, I can't remember precisely offhand, moved to Cheltenham for health reasons, like a lot of people did back then. So they are buried just by the, I think their section is by the two old chapels, the Victorian chapels. You can see part of the chapel in this video coming up. So that's two more, I think, stories from Cheltenham, I should say. So sorry, I got distracted there. Their plots are X4898, and a bit further away from that one is plot X4826. It's just trying to get all these facts. You know what I'm like? Your head gets so full of facts and figures and information, and you're trying to get it out, and your brain's going faster than your, I should say your mouth in my case is going faster than my brain's pulling it out. So sorry about that. Just round this corner, it's another story which I'll come to in just a moment. Okay, so just up here is the grave of Pamela Jones, and she is one of the youngest sisters of the founder of the Rolling Stones, Brian Jones. We'll go down to Brian Jones in a minute. She died just after her second birthday from leukemia. So in a minute I will turn round, hopefully, if I remember to. I should. Yes, here we go. Just go down this path here, we will. It's just this little path here, and then you turn to the left. I think it's right. Not turn right, but turn left. I don't want to confuse you. So I should turn in a minute. Here we go. Yes, there is, okay. So we go down this little path here. See all the little leaves, and you can see all the leaves. It was beautiful up there. It was rather cold, but it was beautiful. But not an ideal day for exploring cemeteries. But that's me and Pete for you. We do tend to go out when it's rather cold. So right on the corner here is Brian Jones, obviously founder of the Rolling Stones, as I said, who was tragically found dead in his swimming pool. And he's in the book Buried Past. His home was the former home of Winnie the Pooh writer. I can't think of his name. M.A. Mills? Sorry, I can't think straight. What's wrong with me? Now, this is a little old gardener's shed that's been turned into a small museum to house 22 crosses that have survived over 100 years. In Cheltenham Cemetery, these were on the graves of soldiers from Cheltenham. They were sent back to their hometown at the end of World War I when the wooden crosses were replaced with the headstones that we recognise today, the white ones. They're all white, so you should be able to recognise them anyway. There was over 100 sent back originally, over 100, I can't remember precise numbers right now, but these are 22 that stayed in situ, and basically they were never removed, they were just left there. But I know at the end of the 30s they started removing the crosses, and they were asking families to pick them up, so I don't know how these stayed. Maybe it was an arrangement with the families maybe, but I do know also that my great granduncle's grave had a marker for Alfred. His name was Alfred Ballinger. He was killed in 1916, and his original cross apparently was sent back home to Cheltenham Cemetery at the end of the war. I have no idea what happened to it, but apparently the family were asked what they wanted to do with it, like the rest of them towards the end of the 30s. After that, I have no idea what happened to him. So if you want to know more about these soldiers, you can read it in our book Buried Past, Tales from the Cheltenham Cemetery, because I do cover the 22 crosses in there. At the time of the writing the book, this little hut didn't exist, so this is all new. Again, it's not in the original video because it didn't exist, so there you go. Here we are walking around the memorial garden. This is where the cremation part is. It was beautiful around here. They've got a lovely pond, these beautiful trees, and if you can see, these beautiful squirrels. They were all playing around. It was beautiful. They were all playing in the leaves and running up and down the trees. Apparently, we've never seen it, but there have been sightings of a family of deers in here. And it's beautiful. You can see all the trees, all the colouring, and this one was quite brave. He came right up to us. It was lovely. It's a lovely area to walk around, very peaceful. Another interesting story from plot. 10 Australian soldiers are buried there altogether. Now, one of them is Private Andrew William Stevens. Now, he was 24. He left behind a wife called Elizabeth and a son Jack in Australia. And now his death was completely accidental. He'd been wounded and he'd been evacuated to Cheltenham. Obviously his family would have got a message to say, he's been shot but he's okay, I think it was an arm injury he had. And what happened was they got a pass, him and his friends from the hospital, to go to Cheltenham Centre, town, whatever you want to call it. They met up with friends and they had arranged to meet them again that evening. Now, they didn't have an evening pass, so it was a case of having to sneak out past the sentry porter, whatever you want to call him. And so they'd snuck through a back bathroom, I do believe it was, and they were coming down along a row, a hedge, and it's on the back of the racecourse, because that's where they were hospitalised at the Cheltenham racecourse. There was a hospital there, and they'd come down the back of the hospital, which if you know Cheltenham, is the Evesham Road, and they all climbed over. So all these friends got over, and the last one got over, but unfortunately he hadn't realised Stevens had actually fallen, and as he got over, he'd fallen on top of Stevens, and he'd realised that Stevens was badly hurt. He'd cracked his head open. So obviously they ran round to the front, got help, but it was everything they could do for him. He had cracked his skull open, causing a hemorrhage, I do believe. So his family, who believed that he was in hospital, safe from all the horrors of war, actually then got a telegram saying, well, we're sorry, but he was killed in an accident trying to get out of hospital on an unauthorised pass to meet friends. Obviously they arranged to go drinking or something. So that's in section plot. It's either section or plot, it's whatever you want to call it. Okay, so now I'm off on one of my little walks. I'm going to show you up to the old cemetery chapels, because they're no longer in use, because they now have 2 new up-to-date modern crematorium and chapels, all up to date with the latest things for the families. And on my original video I didn't actually show you these beautiful chapels up close, so we'll go there now and I'll leave you for a minute and then come back. If anyone is familiar with composers, they will know that Gustav Holst was born in Cheltenham. He's a rather famous composer, and his parents are buried in this section right here. They have an unmarked grave, sorry, I'll get it out in a minute. All that is on their grave is a stick. Now, it'd be hard to distinguish which one it is because there's rather a few sticks around this area, and the numbers that were on them have disappeared. Their grave number is, though, P255. His grandparents are also buried. I think they're in plot W, if I remember rightly. Again, I didn't go and find out if there was it's so fast, it took us all day to see if there was a stone there or not. So that was rather interesting. And also, don't forget, in Cheltenham there is the Gustav Holst Museum. Now that was interesting. I suddenly cut there because I didn't actually know I was going to come across this grave. It was the grave of William Henry Beynon, Beynon. Now he was born in Wales but died he died in the Tyneside Bridge disaster, and he drowned obviously, and that was on the 28th of December 1879. And now I knew he was buried here, but I wasn't quite sure where, so that was quite a fluke. So I won't go into that story because, again, I'm hoping maybe at some point to do an in-depth story, maybe on a video, or add to the book that we already have. He's also buried with him his wife and a gentleman called John Parker, according to the stone, but I've never heard of John Parker in this story, so it'd be interesting to see what his story is. His wife died in 1918, it says. And the grave also says he was a fine arts publisher, but when you look at the casualty list for the Tyneside disaster, I do believe he's registered as a photographer, so that was quite interesting. I've just come past the chapels once again, having a good look at him again, so I'm off again. So I'm just going to end this video with a series of photos that were taken at Cheltenham Cemetery. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, can you please like and subscribe? Thank you very much. Until next time, take care.